Now it's time to go on. After 11, there was number 12. It landed, and 2 more men walked on the moon for a total of 4. And Apollo 13, Jim Lovell, the commander, was supposed to be the 5th man to walk on the moon. And of course, that wasn't to be. Jim, what happened?
Well, let me start out by saying that I was really Neil's backup for the Apollo 11 flight. All our flights have backups. I had 2 major jobs in my job as backup. I had to be prepared in case something happened to Neil, and my second job was to figure out how to break his leg without being caught. But that wasn't successful. Now, I don't know how many people have seen the movie Apollo 13. Have you ever seen the movie? And so naturally you're expected to see Tom Hanks here. I actually called Tom. I said, look, if you want to come over here to see the troops and everything, since you're pretty much interested in military, he's done the Band of Brothers and the Pacific and things like that. And he says, oh, wait, I have been there. I have been there. I said, didn't you? He told me, didn't you see the movie Charlie Wilson's War? And we were over there, the U.S. were providing all these weapons to the Northern Alliance. And I thought to myself, man, have things changed. Now Apollo 13. Apollo 13 was going to be the 3rd lunar landing. We have successfully landed on the moon. This is sort of geopolitical, that tried to be the prestige of getting to the moon. But now the scientists came out of the woodwork. And they said, look, we want to get more science out of these landings. We'd like to have the next flight land in the hills or the highlands of the moon. The reflectivity is much brighter. The material might be different. And we know there's ejecta line on the surface thrown up by volcanism during its early formation or by meteorite impacts ejecta all over. And this would tell us a lot about the interior of the moon. And so Apollo 13 was going to land in a place called Frau Marl, a large crater. We were going to land in the hills of the highlands surrounding that crater. Takeoff on that flight, April 11th, 1970, at 13:13 Central Standard Time. Should have known something was going to happen. Now, we had a little incident before. About 4 days before we take off, the medical people discovered that the whole crew had been exposed to the measles. Now, Fred Hayes, the lunar module pilot, and myself, being married, and having kids that had the measles, and we had the measles, we were immune to the disease. But our 3rd partner, Ken Manley, was a bachelor. Never been married and never had any kids, of course, and never had the measles. So he was dropped. Jack Swiker was put on board just 4 days before the flight. And everything was perfect, though. We took off, no problems. At 30 hours after we'd taken off, we got on a new course to the moon, a course that would be better to see the boulders and the rocks on the surface once we got into a position to land. But also, that course to the moon, if something should happen, was going to give us a trajectory that would go around the moon and come back again and be much too far out around the Earth to be captured by the Earth's atmosphere. But I didn't worry about it. This was my 4th flight, and everything was working perfectly. So about 2 days had gone by, and we were actually doing a TV program in the lunar module, which was powered down. And suddenly, of course, there was the explosion. And of course, everybody didn't know what to do. I looked up at Fred Hayes, and he said, I don't know. And I looked at our new pilot on board, Jack Swiker. His eyes were as wide as saucers. And not only did he not know what was going on, but he was sort of saying to himself, why am I here? And finally we got down there. Well, there's a series of things that happened. And here's where I think that where good leadership, good teamwork, the use of initiative, perseverance, and certainly motivation. These were the attributes, the characteristics that the mission control people had working with the flight crew that turned this flight from almost a certain catastrophe into a successful failure. The first thing we had to do, of course, was to get back on that course, which we call a free return course, to sort of get us back to the Earth somehow, rather than being stranded in space for years. And so we had to use the lunar module because our major vehicle, the command module, had lost all of its power, all of its oxygen, and we couldn't use the propulsion systems. It was dead. And we were flying inside the lunar module. And the one thing that we learned, which we never had thought about before, this lunar module was attached, of course, to the 60,000 pound dead mass on this side, and the lunar module had never been maneuvered with this mass attached to it. And I had to learn to actually maneuver all over again because the center of gravity was way out to left field someplace. But we finally got back on the course, which we thought was a free return. And as we're approaching the moon now, the accident occurred some 200,000 miles out, and the moon, of course, is getting quite big at this time. We found out that we did not have enough electrical power at the way we were at that time to get home. We were a little bit worried about the oxygen, although we had it in the backup packs that we were going to use on the lunar surface. And of course, electricity was very, very scarce at that time, and we had to figure out some way of getting home. And the ground said, well, we think we have an idea. We're sending a crew down to the simulators to work out these procedures, and if they proved promising, we'll send you up the instructions. And they said, now you're getting close to the moon, so if things are okay, be prepared to copy, because once you get around, the moon starts to turn you around, it will be between the Earth and you, and you won't be able to get any communications. And I said, we got 3 people here. If I miss something in these procedures, my companions will sure, take it over for me. And as we got closer to the moon, it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I finally got a call from Mission Control. They said, yeah, we think this is okay. You ready to copy? And I said, yes, I'm ready to copy. And I started to write the procedures down, and I happened to look at my companions. They weren't paying any attention. They were looking at the moon. They had cameras in their hands. One guy was trying to figure out aperture settings. The other guy was looking up shutter speed. And I said, gentlemen, what are your plans here? And they said, Jim, we're going to take pictures. We'll go around to the far side because we never see the far side from the Earth. And I said, if we don't get home, you won't get them developed. And they said, Jim, you've been here before. We haven't, doggone it. I want to take some pictures for our folks back home. Well, we got our pictures, came around, and now we had to turn off everything because to save electrical power, the only thing we had going for us was the radio to talk to the Earth. And things are kind of quiet. And on the way back home again, as they were tracking us now, I finally got a call. They said, Jim, we don't know what you're doing up there. We've been tracking you for some time, and you're no longer on this free return course that would get you back safely into the Earth's atmosphere. And I said, well, thanks a lot. I said, we have all of our nav aids are shut down. We can't navigate. We're flying by the seat of our pants here. And they said, well, we understand that. And they said, you recall on Apollo 8, those emergency procedures that you had in the back of the flight manual, that if all the normal emergency procedures don't work, that you went to the last page and you tried that before you gave up? And I said, yeah, I remember those procedures. I was on the flight, I helped develop them. They said, you're going to have to use them. And this was, and for any of you that maybe want to contemplate getting to the program and going to the moon, we take some notes, was to use the moon's body, the moon, or the Earth, I should say, the daylight and the darkness of the Earth, and the thing in the middle we call twilight as it passes over here, the twilight area. Out there, we call it the terminator. It's rather sharp. If I can somehow manually maneuver the vehicle around without the help of an autopilot, I had to turn that off, to get the Earth in the window of the lunar module. And in the window of the lunar module, I had a gun sight, a crosshair, normally used for rendezvous and docking.